Hello, everybody. This is Todd Strother from the Wisconsin Center for Technology Commercialization, and today we have a quick chat with Dr. Chang Hee Kim, who is the founder of GoDx. Now, Dr. Kim has obtained multiple SBIR grants, but he's also has other collaborations with the National Institutes of Health and has obtained other funds from NIH in addition to his SBIRs. And this is really the focus of today's quick chat. Really, we're going to try to focus on some of the alternate sorts of funding that's available to companies other than SBIRs. So, Chang Hee, can you tell us something about your company, what it does, and what your technology strives to solve?
Yes, Todd, thank you for having me. So DX in GoDx stands for diagnostics. And so we're developing a diagnostics on the go. So GoDx was founded with the vision to save millions of lives by developing and commercializing rapid point-of-need diagnostics for infectious diseases. First, we focused on the diarrheal disease, which is the second leading cause of death in children under age 5. I was just on a call and they said right now, every minute 2 people are dying of coronavirus. But for diarrheal disease, every 1 minute, 1 child is dying of diarrheal disease. So the goal of our company is to develop these rapid, low-cost, point-of-need diagnostics that you can use outside of the laboratory. So you don't need to send the samples to a lab, which could take days to get a result, which is what's happening with the coronavirus tests right now. You have to wait a few days to get a result. In the meantime, you're infecting a lot of people. So instead of that, we are developing a rapid test that you can run at home in 30 minutes and you get a result, and you can quarantine yourself right away. We've been working on the diagnostics to detect the pathogens that cause diarrheal disease. And also, more recently, we pivoted to develop a rapid test for COVID-19. And our test will look like a pregnancy test like paper strip. That's very simple and easy to use, and is rapid and low cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks for that information. So, what brought you to Wisconsin? So I'm aware that you were originally in California, but so what brings you to Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I met Todd and Idella from CTC in 2015 at the Seattle HHS NIH SBIR annual conference. And Todd told me that there's a matching SBIR grants in the state of Wisconsin, so that was a lure for us. But eventually what really brought us to Wisconsin is one of my partners used to work in Wisconsin, and he said it's a really nice place to live, and it's a really supportive environment for biotech startup companies, which I find is very true. I've been helped a lot, especially by CTC and the other groups like BioForward, Tech Council, and WEDC in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, well, yeah, great. We appreciate you coming here, and we're trying what we can to improve the economy of Wisconsin, and I think you're one of our poster children for how we can help industry and startup companies be successful. I think I might ask you a little bit later about your experience with us and SBIR Advanced. But before we get to that, can you tell us first how you started working with the National Institutes of Health?
Yeah, so I actually used to do research in National Institute of Health for 7 years before leaving and joining the diagnostics industry. So I have some collaborators and friends at the NIH, and after I left the NIH, I set up the company. I came up with a collaboration with Dr. Wendy Henderson at the NIH, and we set up what's called a CRADA, which stands for Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, which is a public-private partnership between the government and a private entity like GoDx. And the goal of the project was to develop a rapid, low-cost test to detect the gut bugs that are causing the diarrheal disease. The way this CRADA is set up, it's a collaboration, so there could be joint patents filed together if it's a joint invention, or you could also have sole inventions if either party contributed to sole inventions, which are separate. And also it allows for exchange of funding, either from the NIH or from GoDx to NIH. But mostly, I mean, we were doing biotech on a shoestring, actually. So it was mostly sweat equity from GoDx. And then we were able to take advantage of the vast clinical resources and technical resources of the NIH. So that was a really good collaboration to get our company started. And we were able to file 3 patents out of the collaboration.
Okay, so I guess I want to probe a little bit further on the CRADA there. So was that something, were you aware of the technology when you were there as a scientist originally? Or how did you find out about that killer technology?
No, I mean, I didn't work on it when I was working at the NIH. Actually, after I left the NIH, I became really interested in global health and trying to use diagnostics to help in the developing world. And I found out that if we develop a low-cost rapid diagnostic in the developing world, it could have a huge impact in terms of saving lives. So we just, I mean, I came up with it independently, and my partner at the NIH, clinical partner, Dr. Wendy Henderson, she was doing research in diarrheal disease. So that was a good fit of clinical support from the NIH and then the technology invention from GoDx.
Okay, so you came up with the idea first and then recognized that Dr. Henderson had some skill and experience in that sort of field. And so you thought that was a good idea to try to work together, and that's how you got the CRADA set up?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware of CRADAs before then, or when you were talking to her, did she say, oh, there's such a thing as a CRADA, and let's try to get that together, or how did you learn about the CRADAs?
Oh, yeah, I knew about CRADAs from the time when I was working at the NIH, because I saw a lot of biotech companies collaborating with the NIH using the CRADA mechanism. Such as big pharma companies. Yeah.
Do you know how, well, if somebody else, if another company wanted to get involved with the NIH through a CRADA,
Yes.
Is there a mechanism in place that you can easily go through? They can just call somebody up and say, I want to work with you, or can you give us a sense on how one goes about getting a CRADA started?
Yeah, so you need a collaborator at the NIH who is doing research in your area. And then he or she has to actually present to the NIH the proposal. So you have to write a like a research proposal together and then present it at the NIH, and then go through their technology transfer office. So the technology transfer office at the NIH, they license a lot of technologies, but they're also responsible for setting up these CRADA collaborations. I mean, it's a great mechanism to take advantage of the clinical resources and the technical resources, at the NIH. And sometimes these CRADA collaborators might have a patent already, but in my case, we did not. We jointly invented a patent, or it could be like sole inventions also. But I mean, the first step would be to go through the technology transfer office and see if there are any NIH scientists who would collaborate with your company.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's a great area that people should look into a little bit more closely. I guess related to SBIRs, I'll talk about just a bit about your SBIRs. Do you know if for an SBIR you can get an NIH SBIR grant and work with the NIH under that SBIR, or is that something, I don't know if that's something allowed or not allowed?
I mean, you can, you cannot transfer funds from the SBIR to the NIH investigator, because that's a double dip. That's getting extramural grants to an intramural investigator. So that's not allowed. So
Okay.
as long as there's no transfer of funds, yeah.
So it is possible to write an SBIR, perhaps even an STTR, and have the NIH as part of your collaborating lab.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And I also understand you were awarded a U cooperative agreement with NIAID. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe how it's different than an SBIR or an STTR?
Yeah, the U cooperative agreement, it's a grant basically, but it involves a government partner. In this case, it's the Navy, and we're co-developing a sepsis diagnostic for sepsis. But basically, I mean, it's a significant contribution from the government. That's why it's set up as a cooperative instead of a SBIR. But it's quite similar, actually, except that we have a government collaborator. And in the case of the Navy, actually, they can be paid. But if the cooperative was with the NIH, I don't think they can be paid with that grant. Yeah.
So the U cooperative agreement is, so I think it's listed as a U43. That's a Navy grant, not an NIH grant. Is that right?
No, that's an NIH grant. Yeah.
It is an NIH grant, but you're working with the Navy.
Yeah, the 43 part of it is the business part of it, like, because the SBIRs are like 43, 44s.
So is this a completely separate funding mechanism than an SBIR, or is it part of the SBIR program that NIH has?
It's actually part of the SBIR program. Actually, I applied for SBIR with the Navy, and then the program officer said to change it to a cooperative when we were getting it funded, just because of the Navy, the government collaborator part of it. And in that one, like, you can give the money to the Navy.
Okay. So it was the NIH program officer that suggested you change it from an SBIR to a U43. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
do you know if that?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, there are actually other cooperative agreements out there where you can apply as a company. You know, if you want to collaborate with the government on like a big project,
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot of those. Yeah.
And is that that's not only through NIH then that you're familiar with? It could be other cooperative agreements with other agencies.
Yeah, like the Navy, for example.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so do you know if these sorts of U43s, are they competitive and like you submit a proposal like an SBIR, or is it something that's less formalized than writing a proposal for it?
No, it's competitive. I mean, I applied through the SBIR mechanism actually, so it was peer reviewed, same way,
Okay.
same scoring mechanism.
Okay.
But there are like other cooperatives out there that are reviewed differently, but I think most of them are somewhat competitive. Yeah.
Okay. And then so after all of this, then you started your SBIR journey?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I got the U cooperative later, but when I first came to Wisconsin, I got an SBIR grant. Yeah. Phase 1 and then phase 2 follow on after that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then we
And
another SBIR phase 1 as well, just this summer.
yeah, how many SBIRs have you had now?
Like 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so a couple of phase 1s and a couple of phase 2s.
Yeah.
Plus your cooperative agreement, plus the CRADA, right?
Yeah.
So as part of business that's funded by the SBIR, were you aware of the NIH I-Corp program before all this?
Yeah. I was very aware of that, even from another company I used to work for. But it's a great program. We used to call it the I-Corps because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a very intense program, about 10 weeks, and we have to interview 100 people, potential customers or stakeholders. There's like 10 people to interview every week. You have a team of 3 people, and then we go out and try to interview like 10 people a week. And if you don't make 10 people, then they might not let you present. They might kick you out or something. It was very strict, but it's really helped us with our whole business philosophy, to try to get out of the building and to try to find out like what your customers' needs are and like who your customers are and what their needs might be. I think it's really changed the philosophy of our company, and we try to do these kinds of interview, although we can't seem to replicate the intensity of the I-Corps. But
Yeah. And
yeah.
so you were involved in an I-Corps team before GoDx, though.
Yeah, that was with another company which had a SBIR grant.
Okay.
But
And that's how you learned that.
What's that?
I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead and say what you're saying.
Oh yeah, any phase 1 SBIR awardee can apply for an I-Corps grant. It's like $50,000, and basically like you can travel anywhere to interview your customers. It seems to be like the only travel grant that's almost unrestricted at the NIH.
Mm-hmm. And so they get, not only do they give you training, they give you this $50,000 to do so.
Yeah, to go to conferences and meet people,
Mm-hmm.
travel. It's mostly
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Can you clarify? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know how things are now, but can you clarify? They give you the $50,000. Do they take any of it back to send you through the class coursework, or is that they just give you the $50,000 and all of it's yours to be able to spend for travel and whatever you need to do?
Oh yeah, I think there was some tuition, some part of it. Yeah, I forget
Do you have
exactly
a
the
sense?
amount. To pay the
Yeah.
venture well. That's
Okay. Yeah.
that's tuition to be paid.
And you don't know. You don't remember how much that was, though.
I mean, roughly, it was more than 10,000, I think.
Okay.
It was about a quarter of the fund or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And I know that you were in our SBIR Advanced Lean Startup Program.
Yes.
Uh, can you maybe contrast some of these from your I-Corps experience versus ours? I know did you look at different things, because I know you had the I-Corps program where you determined you established some hypotheses, and
Yeah.
then your SBIR Advanced Lean Startup class. Did you have different hypotheses you were looking to validate?
Yeah, I mean, the SBIR Advanced is much more money. It was $75,000, and I think it's like $100,000 now. And there's no tuition, which is really nice. And then,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can spend some of that money for the lean startup, but you can spend the fund SBIR Advanced for other commercialization activities,
Mm-hmm.
which we did. So that was really helpful. And you can use it to pay for patents as well as marketing costs and any other activities to accelerate your commercialization, which the federal grant will pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're really happy with that particular program, and glad you were involved with it, and glad you got some success out of it. So let me move on to other funds
Yeah.
that you've been able to address. So I understand there's been other funds available from NIH for small businesses that you've actually pursued. Can you tell me something about those other funds?
Yeah. So once you have an active grant, I mean, you can apply for some supplementary funding. And there are different kinds of supplementary funding off of a parent grant. So one of the ones we applied for was called the diversity supplement, which is funding you can get just to hire someone who's from an underrepresented people group. It could be like ethnic or racial or gender minorities in science and entrepreneurship. So it's to increase diversity and reduce any disparity in the representation in sciences or also particularly entrepreneurship. So I mean, the way to get this was it was very informal actually. I had talked to my program officer. I mean, there's a funding announcement, and so you have to follow the rules. But then you need to talk to your program officer of the parent grant and tell her why you need this diversity supplement and the work that that person does has to be within the scope of the parent grant. It can't be on a totally different project, and it has to be on the same project. But I was able to obtain $240,000, which is quite significant, to hire someone for a year and a half with also with the indirect costs of having her in the company. So in the application, you need to write mentoring plan, to describe, because mentoring is one of the key activities that you need to do for the diversity supplement. You need to write a mentoring plan and then a short research plan to write what this person is going to do. So yeah, that was a great supplement program. So we got additional funding for that. And then when COVID happened, in March, the NIH was advertising these additional supplement funding that you can get off of your parent grant if either your COVID project can be similar to your parent grant, or it could be different. And there's two different kinds of funding announcements for that. But you need to have an active grant though. So what we did was we applied for admin supplement, the COVID emergency administrative supplement to work on a COVID diagnostic, because we were already working on a diagnostic for the diarrheal pathogens, and the technology was very similar. So we had a platform technology to rapidly detect the DNA and RNA of viruses and bacteria. So we just proposed that we're going to apply it to COVID. And I talked to the program officer, and she told me to apply for it, write a very short research plan. It's like 2 pages, 2 or 3 pages. Not your usual, 6-page proposal. And then it was funded in 1 month. It was like the quickest funding I ever seen. From the day I applied for it, we got $200,000 in 1 month to work on the COVID diagnostic as a supplement to the supplement funding to the parent grant. So yeah, if you have an active grant, and especially like a phase 2 helps, but you can apply for these other supplement funding for either diversity or if you have some unforeseen needs in your project even, because sometimes over the course of the grant, people might move around, or you might have some unforeseen, need in funding, then you can apply for a supplement funding for that as well. But you need to talk to the program officer. Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that something that you can just basically talk to the program officer to give you some advice on what other funding opportunities are there? Seems like that would be a great way to learn about it.
Yeah, and then tell her why you need the funding, and then she'll ask you to apply for it. And basically, it's like a very short application, like 2 or 3 pages, explaining why you need the funding, or what you're proposing and the budget, things like that. So it's a lot simpler process than the first application. I mean, it's basically reviewed non-competitively within the institute. So I think the program officer and the institute have a lot of decision power to make the funding decision. And it's a lot more rapid. It'll be 1 month or 2 months maximum to get the supplement.
Well, congratulations on getting that. Hopefully it'll be useful in solving some of the problems with COVID. And what other grant opportunities, either with NIH or other organizations, have you pursued, and how has that worked out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've applied for Gates Foundation grants and NSF and DoD grants, but I haven't got any yet. So, yeah.
And applying to the Gates Foundation, did you find it online, and then there's a way to just apply through the Gates Foundation online?
Yeah, I mean, I think they make quarterly announcements or monthly announcements or something. They usually have those 100,000, sort of teaser grants, I guess, or phase 1 kind of grants, the grand challenges they call it. And then if you get that, then you can, apply for more significant funding over millions of dollars. But
so what are your
yeah?
What are your plans for the future, including say government funding as well as maybe expectations for private investment?
Yeah, I mean, we are, we're exploring different avenues of funding. I mean, including crowdfunding, because we want to be a democratic diagnostic and get the COVID test out to everybody. So we want to use a mix of funding strategies. both non-dilutive and dilutive. And even, I mean, areas like us, there's also, I think, foundations who fund this kind of research. And of course, the government has a lot of this kind of funding. I think the investor option is kind of our least preferred right now because we want to maintain control of the company and want to keep it as non-dilutive as long as possible until we get revenue.
Yeah, sure.
Then we can be independent.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for your time here. Let me go to the chat box here and see what kind of questions we might have from the group, from the audience.
Okay.
So one of the questions here is how do the requirements for the cooperative agreement differ from the SBIR? So the requirements.
The cooperative agreement, depending on which one it is, I mean, there's a big cooperative agreement funding right now called the RADx. It's a $500 million effort, $500 million funding to multiple companies to develop a rapid point of care, home test for COVID-19. And that one is set up as a cooperative agreement. But it's got a totally different fund application portal. You don't go through the ERA Commons even. They have their own portal for applying, and then it doesn't have all the rules. Like, I mean, you don't even need to have a DUNS number, I think, strangely enough, to apply anyway. So there are things like this. But what they're saying is that the government will be heavily involved. I mean, they're gonna want a piece of the intellectual property and maybe have you sell it at a price point they want. I heard it's like $25 a test, right? So, but if you're going into a government cooperative like that, I mean, they will be involved. I mean, and they might even join the IP, or you might have to, license it to them too.
Okay. Well, how close are you to getting your product to market? And what are the next key steps to getting you there?
Yeah, I mean, so fortunately, I mean, I don't know if this is fortunately, but because of the COVID, there's emergency use authorization approval process from the FDA, which is very fast track and very accelerated, and it requires a lot fewer clinical samples than a normal FDA approval process. So right now you can have data on 30 positive samples and 30 negative samples, and it doesn't even have to do the virus samples right now. You can spike in the virus RNA into 30 nasal samples or saliva samples, and then call that your positive, and then the negative samples. And then that's your clinical study. So, I mean, a lot of companies have been getting FDA, EUA approvals in a few weeks or a month. So, we're applying for that as well. And, that would allow us to go on the market in a fast track way for the COVID. So I think that's the closest. So we hope to get there before the fall or by the fall.
Wow, that'd be great. Yeah. And I do have a question here back on the diversity supplement. Does that extend, does the diversity supplement extend the term of the grant, or does it fit within the term that was already established by the original grant?
Oh, it follows the terms of the original grant, the budget period. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, if you do a no-cost extension, it also follows the no-cost extension of the parent grant.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Chang Hee. I think that's the time we have for this quick chat. I do appreciate your time and your knowledge and information that you're able to provide us. Now, I'll just finish up with just a little bit of a blurb here. The Center for Technology Commercialization, we're Wisconsin's free resource for SBIR support, and we manage a number of grants and programs that help small businesses and entrepreneurs who might be considering, who might want to compete or win SBIR funding. And one of those programs is our SBIR Advanced that we talked about just a little bit. And this is a matching grant. The state of Wisconsin provides the current recipients of SBIR. So Chang Hee's company did get a matching grant from us. You will find more information on our webpage. There's a deadline coming up, July 31st, for letters of intent. And we also will be planning another quick chat with NIH program managers in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for details on that coming up. All right. Well, Chang Hee, thank you again. Appreciate your time here.
Well, thank you so much. I forgot to tell you that I'm really thankful for the CTC because CTC really helped us get set up, when we moved from California. And CTC really helped us, even getting the accounting company and the legal firms, law firms, and HR services. And so I'm really grateful to Todd and Idella and Dave Lentz, and Margaret at the CTC. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure thing. We're happy to help out, and we're glad for your success. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chang Hee. We'll go ahead and stop here. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Okay. Thank you.